Welcome everyone. Welcome to In the Kitchen with WorkWell NYC and Beautifully Fed. Happy to have you on with us this afternoon.
Super. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for your attendance. This is In the Kitchen with WorkWell NYC. I'm Afia Bediako from WorkWell NYC. WorkWell NYC, as many of you probably know, is the City of New York's Employee Wellness Initiative. We have a suite of programs, including ones to support mental health and well-being, physical activity, taking care of yourself through preventative care, in addition to eating well. And this program is brought to you within WorkWell's Eat Well initiative. There's more information about WorkWell and our programming at WorkWell NYC. You can visit us on the web via Instagram and through our email, workwell@olr.nyc.gov. But I'm going to turn it over to our partners from Beautifully Fed to introduce the program for today.
Fantastic. Hello, everybody. I'm Karen Joseph Sherfis, and I'm one of the partners in Beautifully Fed Food. I'm here with the other partner is Fiona. There's 5 of us. And or is it 4? I can't count. There's 4 of us. Fiona is one. She'll a little bit about herself shortly. But for right now, I'll tell you that Beautifully Fed Food is a collective of women. It's a women-led business from around the African and Latin diasporas. And we are committed to celebrating our cultures, acknowledging the ways that our ancestors have been feeding and growing foods over the years and how that supported them, and taking back those traditions and reclaiming it to support our own health. And we're excited to do that with you, one delicious bite at a time, through our culinary classes, our workshops, and our our demos. And this is one of the demos. This is a demo on it's called Parfait Your Way, and we'll be making a yogurt. And Fiona is here to support me in this series, and I'm really glad to have her. And we're both really glad to have all of you here. Go ahead, Fiona.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome. As Karen said, I'm so glad to be here with all of you this evening. I will be Karen's sous chef and tech assistant in the background. So a little bit about myself. I am, as Karen mentioned, a member of the Beautifully Fed team, and I am a home cook, a community chef, also a fitness instructor, because I definitely believe in a holistic approach to wellness. And so what we put in our bodies, as well as the way we train our bodies, is all a part of our health. So I'm really excited to be here with all of you this evening. I have been cooking up a storm since we've been quarantined, so I am so excited to make this dish with Karen tonight and to answer any questions that you may have. So I will turn it back over to you, Karen.
Fantastic. All right, everybody. Hold on. All right, I had to fix a glitch. So we're making yogurt parfaits. Typically, a lot of our classes are more cooking involved. Today, we're doing just a little bit of baking. It's more of an assembly of things. And the reason is we want to introduce the topic of, we talked last week about whole foods versus processed foods. And this week, we wanted to talk about how to navigate the grocery store, because typically when we do our classes, we'd like to have one of our classes actually in a grocery store where we show folks how to navigate the aisles and how to take control of their health, through their selections. Since we can't do that with you virtually, I figured we would make this dish and we talk about some of the challenges that come with shopping at a grocery store, and ways to combat it, and what Fiona and my things that we take into account and we want to share with you all. But for now, I'm going to walk you through the ingredients for the recipe. I want to know if anybody is cooking along. If you could please share in the chat. One of the things Fiona will be providing for technological support is to read through the chats and make sure that your voices are heard here in the room, even though we're going to have you on mute, just to minimize the amount of feedback that we get. And yeah, I think that's it. So I want to know who's cooking. Please share, or baking with us, because we're going to make a granola to go inside of the yogurt parfaits. We're making our own granola. And I want to tell you what ingredients to assemble. So I'm going to start with the ingredients for the granola itself. So I've got my coconut oil. You're going to need half a cup of this. We have honey, mistake. Also, half a cup, yep, half a cup. Ground cinnamon. We want to have half a teaspoon and half a teaspoon of salt as well. And then you have your rolled oats is what we're using. Not quick oats. We're not cooking these. We're putting these in the oven. So you want them to be rolled oats. Voila. And then I have nuts that I chopped. In the recipe, you'll see it says sliced. I'm not entirely sure why it says that. That was my mistake. It should say chopped. Nobody wants to slice one almond at a time. Give me a second. My camera went away. Cancel. Close. Okay. Voila. Voila. So we've got almonds that I chopped up. We also have raisins and cranberries, 2 separate entities. You won't see any craisins in my pantry. Like, no, that's not a thing. That's not real. So we buy the actual raisins, we buy the cranberries, and we put it together. That's what's in here. And so now we're gonna start by I've got a big bowl, and we're gonna start putting the items into the bowl to season our granola. So I'm reading along with the directions, and Fiona's gonna help me. So already I've got a baking tray here lined with foil paper. I've got my oven set to 300 degrees. It's been preheating. And so while that continues to happen, we're gonna make our granola. So I'm gonna place oil and honey. It's a half a cup each, right, Fiona? What I like to do,
Half a cup each of coconut oil and honey.
Perfect. Thanks, Boba. What I like to do when I'm using sticky ingredients like oil and honey is I rinse out my measuring cup with water, and that keeps things from sticking to it, so everything will glide out really easily. And I'm trying to get, is that really half a cup? There we go. Okay. So I'm getting eye level.
Karen, while you're measuring, we already got our first question in the chat about the difference between rolled oats and quick oats, and I mentioned that rolled oats are less processed than quick oats.
Mm-hmm.
Did you want to add anything else to that?
Yeah, they're more processed. They've been ground to make it easier to cook, so there's less cooking time involved. And there's probably stuff that's been removed. Always read what we recommend on all of our classes. The biggest tenet we have is to read your ingredient labels. And so this doesn't even have ingredient labels. This is a whole food that I purchased at a grocery store, and all this is rolled oats. I'd be curious to know what's in a package of quick oats. And quick oats has its place. Like, I'm not saying get rid of it entirely, but again, be leery of what brand you have, and that the brand that you're using is using the best quality ingredients. So make sure you recognize the ingredients that are in there. Yeah?
That's great.
Okay. And so now I'm adding half a cup. I'm using a liquid measuring cup for this. It's probably better if I stop squeezing and actually pour. There is a slight difference in measurements between the liquid and the dry measuring cups. I'll show you the dry in a second. It becomes really important, particularly when you're baking things. A little less important here. It's kind of minimal, but still, it's good to know that when you're cooking and you're following a recipe and it calls for, half a cup of this, that you're using the right cup, that you're using a liquid measure if it's a liquid that you're measuring versus dry measure. All right, so I've got my honey in here. What else do I need, Fiona, in this?
So for your spices, you'll be adding half a teaspoon of ground cinnamon. Then you'll have half a teaspoon of salt, 3 cups of old-fashioned rolled oats.
Let's do the cinnamon and the salt. Ha, 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 ha. Voila. Half a teaspoon. I'm taking my salt. Voila. This is finer salt that I'm accustomed to. That's sea salt. Half a teaspoon. And then I love these measuring spoons because they have two ends, and so there's a narrow version that will actually fit inside many spice jars like mine, which makes me very happy. Less mess. Also, the recipe does not call for vanilla extract, but I happen to have some here. Yay! So I'm going to add a little bit. It adds a little extra flavor. I'm just going to put a cap full.
Yeah, that sounds delicious. I would also add a little bit of nutmeg to mine.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Fiona makes good nuts. we might have to sell yours for real. See, I can see nutmeg being in here. All right, so I'm gonna get this. Can you see that? Ugh.
Yeah.
All right, looks yum. So I'm just gonna blend it all together. Actually, I should probably use a whisk. That would make my life a lot easier. Voila. There we go. Now we're cooking.
And so before I mentioned the nutmeg, Karen added a little bit of vanilla extract, even though that's not in the recipe, but it would definitely enhance the flavor for sure.
And any extract you have that you like, if I have almond extract, I'd probably use that too. I love almond extract. So
do I. So good.
Okay. So this is gonna be a nice tasty snack. All right, and I need 3 cups of oats, right?
3 cups of oats.
Rolled oats. The person who asked about the oats, are you cooking with us today? Has anybody said that they are? And do you have dried together oats, the quick oats?
Yeah, Patricia, are you cooking with us today? Not cooking today.
Okay.
Is anyone cooking with us today? We'd love to hear from you. Mary Lynn is cooking. Nice. We would love to see a picture when you're done, Mary Lynn. So before you start digging in, let's get a picture because we'll definitely want pics posted to the WorkWell Instagram page as well as sharing them with us.
So this is the dry measuring cup I was talking about. So this is dry measure versus the pitcher, which is your liquid measure. And so now I've got my granola in here, and I measure the granola directly into the oil mixture, and that's totally fine. If you put a little bit more granola than planned, it's really forgiving, granola and this recipe. So look, we're just combining everything, and then we're gonna spread it all on the baking sheet. Let me move this out of the way. I'm gonna put this here for now. The baking sheet with foil paper already lined, and then we're just gonna actually want to taste a little. Oh, now I'm supposed to add my nuts and my raisins.
Yes, you have a cup of raw nuts and a cup of raisins. I love this recipe because it's so simple.
It's so simple, and it's already so good, y'all. It's not even cooked yet, people, and it's already tasty. So I did half a cup of raisins and half a cup of cranberries since I had both. I wanted to include it. And now, oh wow.
Am I saying chocolate in there, or is that just my imagination thinking about adding chocolate?
That would be a really great idea, except I would do the chocolate after the baking.
Yeah, because it would melt.
Otherwise, you have a mess in your hand. But that would be do afterwards. No, these are just really dark raisins.
Yeah.
But they're really good. Mixing. Oh my gosh. And I decided to start doing granola. I don't make my own granola a lot. This is probably like my second or third time doing it. But how I got inspired to do it in the first place is when I started teaching, I started giving grocery store tours and taking people on tours. And it was during these tours where I was getting trained to give the tours that I learned that things that I thought I was doing that was healthy for myself was really not healthy. Like I would, if I was running around and late for work or whatever, and I'd leave the house and hadn't eaten, but I was starving, I'd grab a banana and I would grab a granola bar. And I would use, what was it, like Nature's tinctures, something or another granola bar. The one in the green, oats and honey, the one in the green package. I loved it. It was good. I thought it was good for me. And then I discovered all the preservatives and additives and things that are in there that are not even like food ingredients. And I was taught to start reading labels and be conscious of what was in there. And then I learned, well, what's supposed to be in a granola? And I saw granola, raisins, nuts. Like, I can do this myself. Versus things that you buy in the store that are being promoted as health items aren't necessarily so. So it's really important that we educate ourselves and one another and do the work. And so that's how I started either making my own granola or eating my friends' granola who make them so well, like Fiona. So there's that. So yeah, so get to some friends.
Karen, we have a great question in the chat. Someone is asking about using maple syrup instead of honey.
Oh, please, definitely do
Yeah.
that. In our recipes, we like, especially these days, we've been including substitutions. So if you see the recipe link that Fiona shared, you should be able to see the substitutions there. Maple syrup is definitely a substitution if you don't have honey. Please. So I'm a little OCD, so you'll see me like wanting to grab every single grain. I'm gonna stop in a second. Don't mind me. All right. So
I think maple syrup would give the granola a really great flavor as well. Sure, agave is an option as well.
yeah. With agave, again, you want to be really careful about the quality. All agave isn't made equal. And the minute the food manufacturers found out that people were going towards agave, they got their hands on it and started adding things to it to cheapen the product and make it less healthy for us. So just be sure to read the ingredients. I'm just flattening the granola down so it all cooks evenly.
Karen, your camera went out again on your cutting board.
And now?
Oh, here we are. We're back. Great.
Cool. Thank you for that, Google. All right. So now I'm going to put this in because it needs to be in the oven for 20 minutes. And while this is going, we can get our apples prepared because I decided it wasn't good enough to just cut up an apple and add it to the thing, which you could easily do. But I want to be fancy. So we're going to grill some apples in a pan to add even more flavor and texture to it. I'm going to wash my hands really quickly.
And then check your camera again, Karen.
Camera.
Your name is now Camera. And so in the meantime, Mary Lynn is asking about using both honey and syrup. I would say go for it. What do you think, Karen?
Yeah, why not? Balance it out. Like, don't add more and taste it. Taste it as you go.
Yeah.
And see what you think. So it's not too sweet. Forget maple syrup tends to be sweeter than honey. So just monitor that. Cool?
Okay, so we'll come back to your board now, Karen.
Yay. You can see me? You can see me. Okay, good.
Yeah.
So now I'm getting my pan. And I'm going to put my fire on. So I'm using a cast iron pan because it gets a nice brown. It'll give me a nice caramelization on my apples. I love grilling fruit. It adds another layer of flavor to it. And it's just more fun for me. So I've already sliced up a few. I'm going to get my coconut oil in the pan.
So, Karen, someone has accidentally added the dry fruit to the granola mix and is mentioning that it's a bit thick to mix it.
But I did add the dried fruit to my granola mix. How much did they add? The dried fruit does go in there. With the honey, with the oil.
Yeah, it sounds like you're doing okay, but you're mentioning that it's a bit thick to mix it.
Can you put your camera on? Can we see you? And see if you can spotlight them, Fiona, so I can see.
Mm-hmm.
It might be easier to help you if we can see what's going on.
Sure, you can definitely you can swap out the oil. Someone is asking about using almond oil.
I think I messed this up.
Oh, I'm coming back to you. Let's see, is your camera on?
Yeah.
Let me find you. Here I come. I doubt that you messed it up though. Recipes are so flexible.
It's supposed to
Okay,
look like this?
Karen, here we are.
I'm looking at it. I'm trying to. It's hard
Is
for me.
it supposed to look like this?
Is your oil melted?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm seeing
Yeah.
some white stuff. I'm trying to understand what that is.
The oats and the almonds. Oh, I think I messed this up.
What's white? Can you tell?
Maybe
Fiona?
it's I got
Is it
chopped
coconut?
almond. I'm sorry, the recipe said chopped almonds, so I got chopped almonds. So maybe that's
Okay.
I mean,
Got
it said sliced almonds, so I got sliced almonds.
I see. Got it. Okay, go on. And how much? And you measured out 3 cups of the oats.
Yes.
How much is the oil in proportion as well?
Yes, half a cup of coconut oil, half a cup of honey, half a teaspoon of ground cinnamon. I'm doing everything like it says here.
Beautiful. It might just be that the pan is too small. And that's why it's a little. If you could get it into a larger pan to bake, it probably will work. But you should also just taste it. Taste it, half of a spoonful and see what you think of the flavors. You could also add a little bit more oil, more sweetener if you need to. But taste it. If you like it, I'd leave it as is and just spread it out in a pan, and let's make it work.
Yeah, I also wonder if maybe you can just switch to a different tool because you're using a whisk, which I think might be a little hard to mix those ingredients. And so maybe if you switch to a wooden spoon or something else, I think that that's a big part of what's happening.
Okay.
Good catch. That could be it, definitely, because if you notice when I was using the whisk in the beginning to mix up the oil and the sweeteners, but then afterwards I switched to a spatula to this to actually fold it together because the whisk wouldn't help. So yeah, this is what I use. So try that and see if it makes more sense. Right?
Okay.
So I've got my apple sliced. I'm just gonna put it down. It's not hot enough yet. I want the pan to sizzle. That's how I know. That way the apple isn't there just soaking up oil, but it's actually burning. Not burning, but getting colored, caramelizing. That's what it'll be doing. So that's doing that. I'm going to cut up the other apple. So what I did was I don't have an apple core. Apple core would be really helpful right now. I don't like a lot of gadgets, but there's certain fruit related gadgets that I'm a fan of, like a citrus juicer and an apple core. I finally have a citrus juicer in my life. It's changing everything. And an apple core I used to have when we worked in Bed-Stuy. We had our own kitchen, and it was fabulous. The kids love to use it too. Anyway, I'm going to pretend that I'm my apple core, and I'm just going to slice off the 4 sides of this apple close to the core. Voila. And that's what you're doing. And then what I'm doing here, can you see my board? You can see my board. Is I'm just going to make little slices like so. Cool. And if you're not ready to put it into your pan immediately, you could use a slice of lime or a lemon and squeeze to stop the oxidization so that your apple doesn't turn brown on you. So it's still really pretty. And if it turns brown, it'll still taste the same. It just won't look as pretty. So we do this to minimize that. So I'm going to start with these apples. I'm putting it in my pan. You heard the sizzle? It's the sizzle here. You hear the sizzle? That's what we're looking for. We want it to sizzle. So voila. And then you're just going to brown it on both sides. That needs to be cut again. Quality control. Ooh, that's a lot of oil. Who was it that was cooking with us that was showing us her pan? I want to know how it turned out when she switched her tool and put it in a baking sheet. How to come together.
So I don't have a name, but it's Samsung. And she's asking if the granola has gone into the oven already. And so, yeah, Karen, you've added your granola to the oven, right?
Yep, it's in there. And we need to set a timer. Thanks for asking. Can you set a timer for 20 minutes, for 15 minutes? Set it for 15 minutes.
Oh, good. The spoon helps. That's great. We're glad to hear that.
Yay, that was the difference. So glad you were there, Mama. Beautiful. All right.
And so in terms of having the apples, helping the apples to not oxidize, you would need to add lemon or lime or some kind of a citrus.
Yep. Precisely. Or just cook it really quickly.
Yeah. How much oil are we cooking the apples in?
You have the recipe right, Fiona? Can you read from there? I'm just covering the bottom of my pan.
Sorry, I'm actually just talking out loud here. So it's 1 tablespoon of coconut oil, 2 apples, and I'll actually add the recipe to the chat again in case anyone needs it.
Yay. But yeah, I'm so glad you're helping by reading the recipe out loud. I think it's helpful for me and whoever else is cooking along with us to just have someone there. Like you, a Fiona in the kitchen. We should all have a Fiona in the kitchen to tell us what we should be doing, if only, at all times, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna cut this up. So it's becoming very fragrant. I can smell it. It's yum. I just want to get it brown, but I don't want it to become soft. I still want it to have a slight crunch to it. When we add it to the granola, I want it to have a bite. I don't want it to just melt into the stuff. So be mindful. Wash your pan. If you need to turn the fire down, be sure to do that.
And we didn't talk about knife skills today, but I just want to point out that when Karen is cutting the apples, she does use that claw to really protect her fingers to make sure that she doesn't snip anything as she's cutting.
They like my fingers.
Yeah.
They're important. They stay intact.
Yeah, we try to hold on to our fingers. They're helpful.
They're very helpful. All right, my apples are cut up. All right, let me take a look at my pan. Can y'all see? Y'all can see. Okay. So you can use a fork, a spatula, whatever you have to turn your thing. Yay. All right, I'm gonna turn up just a tad. Okay, while this is cooking, what's next on my things to do, Fiona? What do I have going on?
Let's see. So let me just get caught up with you here. I'm chatting with folks, so I am.
No, I'm in the second part.
Almonds, transfer the mixture to a big 15 minutes to the parfait. Okay. Once you've done that, grill for about 3 to 4 minutes. Whisk the yogurt and honey or maple syrup together. That's where you are.
That's where I am. All right. I've been keeping my yogurt in the fridge because it's.
And when should we turn the apples, Karen?
When they're brown. They're not brown yet. So keep an eye on them. Facts. Let me check now. And Fiona, did you set a timer for me for 15 minutes?
Ooh. Yeah, I was looking at that. So that was about 5 minutes ago. And so I'm setting the timer now for 10 minutes.
Yeah, sounds good. We got a plan. Can y'all see how this is getting brown? Yeah. That's what we're going for. Caramelization.
So Marisa, I am happy. Marisa said that she wants a Fiona for her kitchen too. You can invite me.
I told you.
You know, like I love eating, and so if we're gonna cook and have good food, I will be there. We'll socially distance, of course.
Be her and she will come. Look at that. You should all be so lucky. All right.
So Johnson is asking about using a pan other than a cast iron skillet, and I say sure, you can definitely use what you have handy. What do you say, Karen?
Definitely. I think the heavier the bottom of the skillet is, the better. Non-stick skillets could work. It just won't get as brown because the nature of a non-stick skillet is to not have it stick. So you might have to like really work with that to get it to caramelize the way you want it to. But try it. So yeah, any other skillet, if it's not non-stick, go for that first. But if you have a non-stick skillet, do what you can. Is my suggestion. And if you can, and when you can get a different skillet, and no, not as a skillet to have its place. It's great for eggs, especially because they can get really sticky and mess up, make cleaning difficult. But it's really important. Non-stick skillets often are coated with a chemical that will seep into your food over time. So yeah, and it's particularly the degrading will happen if you are using any metal, like a metal spatula or forks and knives, metal forks and knives to mix the pan. It will start to degrade the nonstick. So just be careful with your nonstick cookware. Make sure that you are, I'm about to remove all of these apples here. Be careful with your nonstick cookware. Make sure to use it with wooden tools whenever possible, like a wooden spoon, that sort of thing, wooden, whatever. Yeah, to minimize the degradation. But yeah, okay.
So I want to go back to our friend who's cooking with us. How is your granola turning out? Because, I want to mention that most recipes can be saved. And so I'm hoping that changing the tool and maybe adding a little more oil or honey or whatever sweetener that you're using to just add a little more liquid to it helped. So we would love to hear how it is coming out for you. Those apples look so good.
Right? I'm so excited. All right.
I really have to start eating before these sessions because I don't have time to eat before we get started. And then I sit here and my stomach is just growling because it all looks so good.
Getting hungry. That's no fun. I'm so glad you mentioned that, Fiona, because it's also key when you're cooking. When I first started learning to cook, y'all, before I learned to cook, I hated cooking. Because anytime I was, I just thought cooking was not fun, was boring. Who would want to do it? Why, when I can order? And then I actually would start to cook and would get frustrated because I was hungry and the food was never ready in time. And then I discovered, I forget where I was, but it occurred to me, well, honey, maybe you need to feed yourself before you cook. Like maybe you shouldn't be cooking when you're starving. And that is so true. You should not cook when you're starving. Like feed yourself first, eat something, even if it's a snack. And the same is true now we're learning, Fiona, of attending cooking classes. Like don't sit in a cooking class if you haven't eaten because you just don't make yourself mad. So your stomach mad anyway. So have a snack, have something that you enjoy eating that you can just snack on. We often will have snacks in our cooking classes because we don't want our participants to be angry with us while they're waiting to make a meal with us. So, and it helps tremendously. We would do that. All right, this is gonna be I got more apples, but this is gonna be the last batch I cook on camera with you all because you get the sense of what we're going for. We want them to brown like so. And now I'm gonna make my my yogurt. You had a question?
Yeah, I was just gonna mention that Patricia made a great point in the chat, which is to not grocery shop when you're hungry, because you end up overspending, buying way more than you would have otherwise. I've been there. I'm sure many of you have been there. Everything looks good, and you decide that you need everything that you see, but you really don't.
You don't. And at the end of the shopping trip in your home is probably mostly like packaged products anyway, nothing that you can actually cook, just snacks. So yeah, it's always a good idea to thank you for bringing us back to the grocery store.
Yes, yes. That was a perfect transition. Right?
So definitely our tips are eat before grocery shopping and have a list with you. Know what it is that you're missing in the house that you want to re-up on, what things you want to buy. If you have a meal plan already in mind of what you're going to cook that week, plan out what are the different ingredients you'll need and make sure that gets on the list. And then when you're at the actual store, this is what you want to consider. I think in the promotion, materials we mentioned, the importance of shopping in a circle or shopping the perimeter of the grocery store. Who's heard of that? It's one of the ways I was trained when I was giving the grocery store tour to tell people to do And the reason why is, well, I want to ask, why do we encourage people to shop at the perimeter? We, you know, Fiona and I, those of us who are culinary nutrition educators and want folks to eat whole foods, why would we encourage you to shop the perimeters? What's in the perimeter that you won't find in the interior of the supermarket?
Feel free to message us in the chat.
Yeah.
And someone actually, just going back to the recipe for a moment, I want to share this with everyone because I would do this. Someone asked about adding coconut, dried coconut. I would absolutely add dried coconut to my granola. So there's an idea for any of you who will be making this later over the weekend.
Yeah.
And Grace, that's great, Grace. That's a tongue twister. Yes, all the fresh whole food, all the fresh whole food is around the perimeter of the store.
Yes, she gets the point. Gets all the cash prizes, except that there aren't any. You get the idea. So yeah, that's exactly the point. There are, you know, you've got, when you walk in, typically the fresh produce section is right there. Then as you're walking on the perimeter, that's where they've got all the refrigerated sections. Everything is plugged in. So that's where you find all of your more whole ingredients. So yogurt, milk, eggs, this sort of thing. And the frozen goods also. The frozen goods you got to be mindful of because you'll have your frozen vegetables, but you also have frozen packaged products or food-like products, as I like to call them, because not everything in there is natural food. So again, we encourage you to read labels. One of the things we will typically do when we go on the grocery store tours is we'll take you through the interior aisles, because we know we shop the interior too. Like there's stuff there, but there's a method to the madness. You've got to be really strategic because the food manufacturers, the ones who put the products on the shelves, are in the business of making money. They are not in the business of making you healthy, no matter what they put on the package. And it's really key to remember that, because otherwise we'll get fooled by their marketing ploys. And they'll tell us things like they know what's hot in the streets. They know what the latest trends are. They know that folks are concerned about gluten. And so they'll tell us every product that they sell, this is gluten-free. This is what, even canned salmon is gluten-free. Well, how about the fact that there's no gluten in salmon to begin with? Why would you tell me that salmon is gluten-free? So it's important to be educated, again, to know and not get fooled by what they're telling you. And if you think that you might be, read the labels. It all comes back to reading the labels. So when we're in the aisle with canned products, one of the biggest things we tell folks to be mindful about is with canned products. So there are, canned veggies, canned fruit, and folks have their opinions. Even amongst chefs in Build Fed Food, we have our opinions about the role that canned and frozen fruits and veggies play in our lives personally. But at the end of the day, the fact of the matter is that frozen and canned veggies and fruits are all packaged at the peak of ripeness. So it's all good for you. The key though is to look to see what's in the ingredient still. So you want to go back to the label and read it and see what's in it. And the key to look for in fruits, in canned fruits and frozen fruits, well, canned specifically, they will tend to add sugar. Sugar is a natural preservative, and sugar tastes good, and people like to buy things that taste good. So food manufacturers are quick to add sugar to an item to make it taste good, but it makes it less healthy for us if it's full of sugar, has more sugar than it does fruit. That's not serving us any purpose. So you want to look for, when you're buying canned fruit, we encourage our folks to buy fruit with, let me turn my fire down.
Yeah, and Karen, it's actually time to check on your granola. The timer's gone off.
All right, let me get these apples out, and then I'll grab the granola. Good timing. It smells so good, you all.
Let's take a look one last time. How many do you have coming out there?
Huh?
Oh, I was trying to get a sneak peek of those apples. They were looking so good before.
They are still yum. All right, let me turn my fire off and take a peek and see what our granola is looking like. Ooh.
Also, how do you preserve your granola, Karen? What do you think is the best way to preserve this granola? I know it says on our...
You've cooked it. It never lasts that long for me to have to consider. What do you do, Fiona? I would think like in a sealed jar, right? Glass.
Yeah, definitely glass. Yeah, I think that the key is to really make sure that it's cooked all the way until it's dried out, you know, because if you've got any kind of liquid left in there, I think then it gets kind of gross because I've done that. But yeah, once it's fully cooked and it's nice and dry, just storing it in an airtight container, that's worked for me.
Nice. But I want to take this out just to look at it. Let's see. Okay. Taking my towel to hold on to this bad boy. Ooh. It's not quite crunchy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it still needs some work. It still needs some time. I think I might.
Definitely key. Yeah.
And I see parts of it are browning and other parts are still a little white. So I'm going to turn the tray also to make sure that all, you know, because every oven doesn't cook evenly, and so you need to find the hot spots. Fiona, do you, what temperature do you normally cook your granola at? Does 300 do it for you?
Yeah, I usually go a little higher. Yeah, I
think
usually go up to like 350, even 375.
Okay. Yeah, I'm cooking in my friend's oven, you all. I've got some internet connectivity issues at my place. So we're still learning each other, the stove and myself. So I'm gonna put her up a little bit higher and put her back in while we finish making this. And I'm still gonna taste a little because I get to do that because I'm cooking.
No fair.
I know. So good. Okay. I'm washing my hands and then putting it back in the oven. Oh my god. The honey with this. Really nice, really rich. Whatever. And the beauty of this is you have all control. So you can cut back on the sweetener if you don't like a sweet granola. You could add more nuts if you like a nuttier granola. Like, you make it the way you want it. So okay, I'm going to turn up my heat. Let's do 350. Let's do 365. Start. And 10 more minutes, Fiona. Let's try that.
Got it.
Cool. All right. And I'm going to start making my yogurt blend and keep talking to you about the fruit. So again, with the fruit, you want to, actually, what do I need? Anyway, measuring cup. How much of the yogurt am I blending with honey? How much of the honey? That's a good question, right?
It is 1/3 cup of honey with 3 cups of yogurt.
Yay! Okay.
Someone asked a really great question about eating local honey and if that helps with allergies.
What's your, yes, I don't suffer from allergies personally. It's been my thing, but I have friends that have, and we work with a lot of growers who raise bees and whatnot and sell organic honey at their farm. And we've had clients in our cooking classes that will go to this farmer. Her name's Ina. She's in Bed-Stuy, if that's close to anybody who's here. And have experience where they used to suffer with allergies, and then all of a sudden they didn't after one season of just eating organic honey. And yes, something about the you're like immunizing your body because you're eating the honey from the bees from that area that have been pollinating all the plants in that area, and so you're no longer affected by it in a way that you once were. So yeah, highly recommend it if you have been suffering from allergies, to try it and see what works for you.
Yeah, I've heard people say that it has helped them. So never hurts to try.
Definitely. And of course, talk with your doctor. But
For sure.
plant food is medicine. That was the original medicine before there was prescription, drugs. There were prescription plants. That's where we got it from. So highly recommend engaging back in that behavior for sure.
Yeah.
All right. I've got.
And then eating local honey also supports, a local beekeeper, right? So we also love supporting local businesses.
Definitely. And it's so important, especially right now, the way folks are.
Karen, you were not lying when you said you don't like to waste a thing.
I told you my OCD really comes out when I'm cooking. It's bad. Like, what are you doing? I can't waste the job. Like I've been trained. I've been trained not to waste. It's as though my mom is still here watching. Anyway, okay. So I've got my yogurt. I need my honey. A 1/3 cup. We said, right?
We have. Let me go to our recipe here. We have 3 cups of plain yogurt and then a 1/3 cup of honey or maple syrup.
Okay, let's do a 1/3. And here you could also mix if you like a combination of maple syrup and honey. That could be nice. What I love about this, so, all right. So we talked a bit about, starting, right? Okay, want to make sure my oven didn't turn off on me. It did not. So we talked about grocery store, interior aisles, and fruits. So yeah, with fruits, you want to make sure to watch the sugar content in your fruits and just read the ingredients and make sure that if you're buying a can of apricots, that apricots is the first thing in the ingredients and not water or sugar, because then what you're paying for is water and sugar, and not the apricots. So I'm getting my thing in here, but then, so now let's go to yogurt. So around the perimeter where you see your eggs and things, you'll also see yogurt. And yogurt is really key. I usually have a container of yogurt in my fridge. I love it because you can make it either savory or sweet. And you can, so I'm mixing up the honey and the yogurt now. And so you can but the way to do that is to look at the ingredients, y'all. Read the yogurt label and make sure you're buying like whole milk, or even like goat milk yogurt if you find, like me, that you're have issues with lactose. Goat milk, I don't have the same reaction to goat milk as I do to dairy milk. But even whole milk yogurt, I introduced that back into my diet after getting rid of dairy for a while, and I realized that I'm not sensitive to it any longer. So you get your whole milk yogurt, but again, make sure it's whole milk, and that it's plain. And when I say plain, I don't mean vanilla flavored yogurt. I mean plain yogurt, because then that way it's a neutral palate, and then you could add whatever you want to it. You could make this, so you see what we're doing now, we're adding some honey to it. If you wanted to, you could add fruit directly to this and have your own fruit yogurt versus the yogurt that already has fruit added in the grocery store, even the one that's like Activia and says it's probiotic rich and all this stuff. Read the label, see what's in there, because it's likely full of lots of sugar that you don't need or want or thought that you were buying. So it's best to buy the plain yogurt and then create your own add-ins. And you see, I mean, we're done. Like, that didn't take time at all.
So creamy and so good.
And I've done this, so I do sweet yogurts sometimes here and there, but what I always have is a savory yogurt in my fridge. I have one right now with scallions and cilantro and garlic and cumin and a little bit of salt and red pepper flakes. It's a dip for all things. Anything I feel like just putting a little bit of whatever you would use like sour cream or something for, I use a yogurt dip for. So, and it's so much better than sour cream. It's a real product. It's yogurt. That's what it is. It's fine. All right, so I've got my yogurt. I've got my apples. I think all we're waiting for is the granola, right?
Yeah, so Karen, I wanted to go back. You know, you were talking about shopping in the produce aisle, and one of
Yeah.
the things that we often talk about is comparing buying a single item versus buying it in the bags. And I actually had an experience this weekend when I was shopping for potatoes, and the cost of 3 single potatoes, it was almost as much as getting an entire bag. And so sometimes it really does help to compare getting single items versus getting a bag of something.
Right. Use the unit price. So it's help you look at the unit price per item, and then look at that cost when you're buying a bag, like bag of onions, for instance, or a bag of potatoes, like Fiona was saying. Just look and see before you make a purchase. And that's a way that you can be really economical and smart about your money and not just waste stuff. So yeah, totally agree with that. And I wish we were in person, y'all, so we could take you to a store. We could have more in-depth conversations about this. But you're getting the gist from us here. No need to whip, just folding the yogurt. Yeah, that's key.
And so Karen, let's get your camera adjusted again.
Oh, Jesus. Close. All right. I know.
Back in business.
Voila. Okay.
Yep.
Beautiful. So while I'm gonna cut up the apples while the granola is still doing its thing, and we'll talk a little bit more about so we talked about the fruits, vegetables. What do you think you need to look for when buying canned vegetables? If we're looking for sugar when buying apples, when we're looking for sugar when buying canned fruit, what are we looking for when buying canned vegetables? What do we need to be concerned about?
What do you all think? Send us a message in the chat. What do you look for when you're buying vegetables that are not fresh? Sodium.
Exactly.
Excellent. Yes.
Exactly. You want to make sure that there's no salt added. And then also when you're buying certain vegetables, like your canned beans, you can always rinse them under cold water. Rinse them a couple of times. Statistics show that rinsing your canned veggies can reduce the salt content by as much as 40%, sometimes more. So always be conscious of that, to the power that you have. But it first starts with buying a can that has the least amount of salt in it, like no salt added at all. That way you have all the control, all the power. That's the whole point. We want you to have all the power. Okay.
So I'm curious.
Go.
I'm curious to know, by the way, apples looking so good. I'm just in love with these apples, apparently. They look so good. But I'm curious to know of our audience, our cooking friends here, do you buy canned or do you buy frozen? I'm of the frozen ilk. How about you all? Do you like canned or frozen, or just whatever is most convenient and available at the time?
And while we're
frozen or fresh only, yeah.
And while we're waiting for them to answer, if there are others, I'll share. I buy both for different reasons. I use fresh. I use fresh, whenever it's in season. And there's a great website, Grow NYC. If you put it in the chat, Grow NYC. For those of us here, we're all New Yorkers or living in New York at least. Grow NYC's organization, they have food markets throughout all the 5 boroughs, but they also are tracking like what's growing and what's in season in New York. And so I always consult with them to see what's seasonal, because the thing with our grocery stores, y'all, is, you probably noticed this, we Americans have become accustomed to just being able to cook whatever and eat whatever we want, whenever we want, not thinking about seasonality, because everything is sold at all times, because we're importing the things that aren't, available locally. But the beauty about eating in season and picking your produce that's ripe and fresh and grown for the moment is twofold. One, it's going to be cheaper because it's grown there. It doesn't have to, you don't have to pay for the mileage it takes to ship it from one country to another. And then B, it's going to be better for your body, because your body is eating the things that the nature provides what you need in the moment. And nature is growing things for you to be eating right then, because it's good to support your immune system, support what's going on in the environment at that time. And that's why eating locally, grown honey supports your immune system, because you're eating it right then in the time. So there's huge value to that. So I always buy seasonally when I can, the fresh stuff. But when my family's from the Caribbean, my mom is from Jamaica, dad is from Cuba, and I grew up eating things from the Caribbean, plantain and mangoes, and eating it year round. And my body craves it, even, if it's winter time and I'm in New York. I still, not mango, but I still want my plantains. I still want, I want bananas. I want other things that you shouldn't be able to buy in New York, but we can. So I still do that because I was accustomed to doing that. It's part of my DNA. And so I thrive on eating, my cultural foods. And we encourage folks to do that if it works for you too. But then additionally, if you don't have access to the things that are in season, that's when the frozen fruits and the canned stuff comes into play as well. But again, look at the labels. Look at the labels and make sure. So yeah,
Karen, let's also look at the granola. It's time.
Yeah. Good point. Oh, it looks beautiful. It's nice and brown. I think it's done. It's done.
Yeah, let's get a view of that granola.
Can y'all see that?
So our bowl is blocking my view.
Sorry. I keep forgetting what y'all can see. Okay, I'm gonna move this out of the way, and I'm gonna move this here.
I think I need to brown some apples this weekend.
Right this minute. Right this minute. Go do that. Look at this, y'all.
Nice.
And it smells amazing in here. It smells like I just baked a pie. Oh, so good. If I had a bigger baking sheet, this would be done. It'll be crispy already, but I'm gonna be fine. We're gonna show you how to layer it now, and then we could do the rest off camera. I can do the rest off camera.
So Karen, would you say, because I know the recipe right now says to set the oven to 300, would you say at 350 would be better?
I say 350. Yeah.
Yeah.
Amount of granola. Again, it depends on the size of your baking tray, because maybe if you had a larger tray, it would be, more diffuse and it would brown. So I don't know. But let's say 350. Yeah, for 20 minutes, and ask folks to continue to keep an eye on it, like check after 15 minutes, just to see, because we don't want it to, burn on you. That's the key. All right, I'm gonna get a spoon to help me layer. And remind me what goes into my glass first. I got these really cute glasses, y'all. I'm really excited. Got really cute glasses to layer stuff.
So you're going to layer a 1/3 cup of the sweetened yogurt into the bottom of each glass, then add a layer of granola, and then add some fruit.
Okay. Yogurt, granola, fruit, right?
Yep.
In that order? Okay, beautiful. So let's do it. Yogurt.
So I usually have strawberries with my parfaits a lot, but now I'm really into these apples.
I got you to switch over.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get a different spoon.
Parchment paper versus aluminum foil. So I tend to use parchment paper more than aluminum foil, Karen. Do you think that we could use that?
Why do you use parchment instead of aluminum foil? Because I'm the opposite.
I mean, for me, I've just read about aluminum, and so I just tried to avoid items that have aluminum in them, but it's not for cooking purposes,
Yeah.
But in terms of cooking, do you think that parchment paper would create, a different result?
For me, the reason why I don't use parchment as much as foil is because with my, my ADD and my OCD, I'll forget about something on the stove if I don't have a timer hit. And it seems aluminum foil is more forgiving. With parchment paper, the parchment paper, I've had the parchment paper itself actually burn on me with stuff on top of it. I've had the thing that I'm cooking get brown really quickly on the side that's touching the parchment paper. Cooks a lot quicker than I thought. Even if I am watching my timer and I'm responding properly, it just cooks faster. And so, so something to be mindful of. So if you are cooking with parchment paper, just be aware of cook times may vary. So keep an eye on it. But I know I've been reading about the the chemicals and the problems with aluminum foil and how parchment paper is a more natural source, and I'm always looking for ways to be more natural in my kitchen. So yeah, that is great, but at the same time, I don't want to start any fires. So
yeah, that's not good. So if that helps you to avoid fires, I absolutely recommend. If any of you have ADD as Karen does, then please stay away from parchment paper.
You're learning all about me in these series. I love it. Fantastic. All right, so
Karen, do you have any sense of the number of calories in this?
I don't. We could find out. We could do a check and say we should let you know we are culinary nutrition educators and not nutritionists or dietitians. So our concern is not really on the calories, but on the nutritional value of the foods that we're eating. And so members of Be Look Fed, we don't really watch calories. We just watch the nutrition content. So we're not focused on that. But if that's something that we're finding our participants really want to know, that there's something that they're tracking, we'd be happy to support you in doing that. And we can add calorie content to our recipes, but it's not something we've been in the habit of doing. Because we want folks to be more concerned about making sure you have a wholesome diet, that it's varied, that it's got lots of color and things. Can you see this? Can you see this?
Yeah, there you are.
There I am. So that's what we're looking for. And that's why you haven't heard us talk about calories so much. But it's yum. And pay attention to your body. Stop eating when you're full. Eat when you're hungry. Notice your body's cues. The key to doing that, though, and I'm learning this the more that we're in quarantine and not with people, that when I'm usually eating when I'm in front of my computer and working. And when you're doing that, when you're watching TV and eating, working and eating, doing anything and eating, you're not focused on the actual digestion. You're not focused on the actual food. You're not focused on your body's cues about whether or not you're still hungry. And if the food tastes good, where if I'm cooking, like it's going to taste good, I'm going to keep snacking and going as opposed to stopping when I know that I'm full. So just something to remember, you all, when you are eating good food, make sure, you take a breath, you take some time to be mindful, and you're paying attention to what you're eating.
Yeah.
How much you're eating.
So our cooking friends, tell us how it's going. So there's a question about whether the granola should be completely cooled. Probably is best, but for the sake of time, we went ahead and put the parfait together. But yeah, if you can, just let your granola cool for a bit. But other folks who've been cooking with us, are you able to let us see your final parfait? We would love to see.
Or wherever you are in the cooking process. And I'm going to taste.
Oh, yeah. I'm laughing because my stomach is literally growling as you stand there eating your parfait.
I'm so sorry.
Is anybody else's stomach growling looking at this delicious parfait? So
the
good.
apples, it's really good. Yeah, if you love coconut, definitely put some coconut flakes in this. We're officially done. I'm going to make a couple more glasses for my hosts of the kitchen tonight. So we'll be on if folks still have questions. But otherwise, you can say bye. Thanks for joining us. And we still want to see those of you who are cooking. We want to be able to see your results. So please show us.
Thank you, everyone. We were so glad to have you with us this evening. We would love for you to join us again next week. And maybe when you come back next week, you can tell us how your granola parfait turned out. Because I know some of you said you'd be making this tomorrow or over the weekend. And so come back again next week. Let us know how this turned out.